He handed me divorce papers on an ordinary Tuesday, as if 16 years of marriage could be filed away with a signature. No explanation. No fight. Just silence and a cold envelope. But what he didn't expect, what he never saw coming, was my response. Because I didn't break. I rebuilt. And by the time he realized what he'd lost, I was already gone. Chapter 1. The envelope. It was a Tuesday. Not that the day of the week really mattered, but I remember it vividly, how unremarkable everything seemed right before my life broke open like a dam under pressure. The sun was out. The kitchen smelled faintly of fresh laundry because I'd opened the window near the garden. I was rinsing a mug when I heard the front door open. Ethan didn't usually come home early. We'd been married 16 years, long enough that silence had become more common than words, but not yet long enough for either of us to admit that something fundamental was breaking. Still, I could feel it. He didn't kiss my cheek like he usually did. No smile, no "hey, babe." Just quiet footsteps on the hardwood, then the sound of a chair pulling out behind me at the kitchen table. I turned slowly, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "You're home early." Ethan looked up at me with those eyes I once trusted with every piece of my heart. He didn't look angry. He looked empty. "I need you to read this," he said, sliding a thick envelope across the table. I stared at it. There was a hesitation in his movements, like he was waiting for something to erupt. The envelope stopped a few inches from my fingers. I didn't touch it at first. I looked at him instead. "What is it?" I asked, already knowing. "Just read it," he repeated. My fingers trembled as I opened it. "Divorce." The word screamed at me in bold, sterile text. The legal language, the impersonal phrasing, it was like someone had written the obituary for our marriage and mailed it from a stranger's address. "I'm sorry," he said softly. I can't keep doing this." "What exactly can't you do, Ethan?" I asked, still staring at the papers. "Being married. Or being married to me." He didn't answer. Chapter 2. Silence is louder than screaming. For 3 days, I didn't cry. I didn't shout or throw things. I didn't call my best friend or my sister. I didn't even tell my mom. I just sat with the silence that had been growing between us for years, letting it speak now that he had finally signed his name under the death certificate of our love. We hadn't been perfect. Far from it. But there was loyalty. History. Nights filled with laughter. Mornings spent tangled in bedsheets and dreams. I kept wondering, where had I lost him? But the deeper question was harder. When had I lost myself? That third morning, I stood in front of the mirror in my bathroom. I touched my face. I looked into my eyes like I was trying to find someone. I said it out loud, "I'm still here." And that's when I decided he wouldn't get the ending he expected. Chapter 3. The response. The next time I saw Ethan was a week later. He came by to pick up a few things. He expected distance. Cold civility. Maybe tears. Maybe a breakdown. What he got was me, standing in the same kitchen, but no longer broken. "I've read the papers," I said, placing them on the table. I had signed them, but I had also attached something else, a letter, folded carefully. "What's this?" he asked, puzzled. "Read it," I said. My voice didn't shake. My heart didn't race. He opened it and read. "Ethan, you thought I'd fall apart. That this would break me. That I'd beg, plead, or collapse into a puddle of grief. I almost did. But something happened instead. I found myself again. You left, but I stayed. I stayed with the memories, the pain, the echoes of our past. And through that storm, I realized something important. I was always enough. I just stopped believing it because you stopped seeing it. You want a divorce? Fine. But you don't get to walk away thinking you destroyed me. You didn't. You freed me. Amelia." When he finished, he folded it carefully and stared at me. "You don't mean that," he whispered. "I mean every word," I said, then stepped around him and walked into the sunlit hallway of a life I was now reclaiming. Chapter 4. Her rise. The months that followed weren't easy. Rebuilding never is. I took up yoga, not for the trend, but because it gave me breath again. I started painting, not the kind you hang in galleries, but the kind that smears emotion across a canvas when words fail. I reconnected with old friends. I said yes to dinner invitations. I traveled, sometimes just to the next town, sometimes to the coast. I began to laugh again. And every time I did, I realized how long it had been. Ethan texted me once. Just once. A photo of the beach we'd gone to on our honeymoon. No caption. Just the picture. I didn't respond. Some stories end with pain. Some end with healing. Mine was reborn in fire. Chapter 5. The unexpected ending. It was nearly a year later when I saw him again. A friend of ours, mutual from the old life, had invited both of us to a small dinner gathering. I almost didn't go. But then I remembered, I wasn't avoiding my past. I had grown beyond it. He looked older. Tired. Not in the way time does to a person, but in the way regret does. He watched me laugh across the table. He saw the way people leaned into me, drawn to my light. After dinner, he approached me on the patio. "You look good," he said awkwardly. "I am," I said simply. "I didn't expect you to move on so fast." "That's because you didn't know me anymore." Silence stretched. "Was there someone else?" he finally asked. "There is now," I said with a small smile. "Me." Conclusion. I used to believe that love was about holding on, gripping tight, even when your hands were bleeding. But now I know real strength comes from letting go when someone has already walked away in their heart. Ethan's divorce papers weren't the end. They were the beginning. In losing him, I found me, the woman who laughs louder, stands taller, and no longer settles for silence. The woman who no longer fears endings, because she knows she can write her own next chapter. So if you're reading this, thinking your world is falling apart, maybe, just maybe, it's finally falling into place. He gave me divorce papers. I gave him a story he'll never forget. And I gave myself a life I never knew I deserved.